Today, a special edition of State of Texas, a deadly crash into an Austin emergency room.
How do we prevent this from continuing to happen?
Sparking local, state, and federal action to protect people at hospitals.
These things are foreseeable, that they're predictable, and they're preventable.
Our team tracks hundreds of similar crashes across the country, many here in Texas.
I think you have good investigative journalism that brings to light a significant safety issue.
Now, our questions and one family's frightening experience are prompting more policymakers to consider ways to prevent disaster.
We're just super glad that our story is being used as sort of a catalyst to,
how things should be, and that no one else would have to go through what we're going through.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. This week, the Austin City Council is set to give final approval to a resolution requiring all new hospitals to install crash-tested security barriers at their entrances. It's just one in a handful of Texas cities considering such policies after our investigative team shared its extensive research over the past year and one family's heartbreaking survival story.
I got a white Acura that drove through the entrance to the civilian side of the emergency room.
There's no indication at this time that this was an intentional act.
Nadia and Levi Bernard and their two toddlers were looking at an aquarium in the ER waiting room at the moment of impact. We obtained this footage through a public information request in the now closed police investigation. It is hard to watch, but we think it's important you and policymakers see it. In the chaos of the silent video, you can see Levi Bernard climbing over the car, searching for his one-year-old Sonny, who just went through the windshield. His wife Nadia and their other toddler are seen screaming as staff rush to help. From this angle, you can see just how close other patients came to being hit during the crash. Through police records and an autopsy report, we learned the 57-year-old driver who died had at least 3 times the legal limit of alcohol in her system. She accelerated from 15 to 47 miles per hour, never letting off the gas. After watching the video, experts tell us it's a miracle the Bernard family is alive.
I went to go turn off the car because I couldn't see him anywhere, and when I leaned in to go turn off the car, he was like on the floor with this trash and debris, just covered in blood. I just saw the whites of his eyes just like looking up at me.
I kept asking, what's going on with Sonny? What's going on? And the doctor was like, he's screaming. You hear him? That's a good sign.
You're gonna be okay, Bubba. You're gonna be okay, hey? You're gonna be okay.
Got it.
Why did it happen to us? Why did we survive this?
We really felt, considering the tragic nature of what happened, there were so many blessings that did occur. Something that it might be seen in some of the videos was the water. The vehicle had direct impact to a very large aquarium that really, I believe, saved lives as it absorbed the impact. And so, thank you. I thank God for intervening there and giving us that protection.
Experts say that aquarium was not enough, and something else could have prevented this crash, something St. David's North did not have at its ER. Security barriers, also known as bollards, to keep vehicles from driving through. So our team went to work.
So straight here, and then we're gonna make a right at the stop sign. Interesting though that you have set there, but not the emergency doors over that way. They've got bollards protecting the main entrance over there. It's covered all along here. We've seen them in all shapes and sizes.
Data we compiled at the time from TxDOT and other sources showed in the preceding decade there were at least 85 vehicle crashes into medical facilities statewide. St. David's North had the most victims. Just weeks before that crash, 2 others east of Austin in Navasota and College Station. And the numbers have continued to climb since that initial research. But Texas is not alone.
All of these accidents are foreseeable, and because they're foreseeable and they keep happening and they happen for the same reasons, they're predictable.
Drive through a hospital. If you look at the video, Piedmont does not have any of these security balusters.
A Good Samaritan has grabbed Rio, the older son, and is trying to move him out of the way. And here, they are actually picking up Nadia where she was lying after being plowed over by the car. For my clients, the fact that this happened to them is completely unacceptable. And what they really, really want is for nobody else to have to go through what they've gone through.
The Bernard family and the 5th person injured during that crash have filed a $1 million lawsuit against St. David's, accusing the hospital of gross negligence, saying security barriers, or bollards, could have stopped the car. The day after the crash, the hospital explained there were no bollards at its ER entrance, so wheelchair access was easier. In the months to follow, though, and after our questions, the hospital installed a dozen bollards at its entrance and replaced its CEO. Regarding the lawsuit, St. David's told us the safety of our patients and their families, as well as our employees and visitors, is always our top priority, and citing hospital policy would not comment on pending claims or litigation. Still, we learned there are companies pushing for new policies and safety improvements. At least one is testing a solution right here in Texas. That and the policies local, state, and federal leaders are crafting after our investigation. It's all coming up.
If a bollard is not crash tested like we're seeing today, you have no idea whether or not it can stop the vehicle. At what speed, what size vehicle, so that's the problem.
So it could be useless?
It could be completely useless, absolutely.
Typically the maximum speed a vehicle can get to in the given space of the parking lot.
Welcome back. That company you just saw says concrete snaps easier, but compare that to this previous test of a crash-rated bollard made of high-strength steel and stiffeners.
One of the difficult parts is there are so many different types of bollards out there, and unless the owners of that building see a certificate that said that that bollard was crash tested to the standard, you would never know.
How are hospitals supposed to afford that?
Yeah, again, I think we are asked this question all the time. It's just the cost of keeping their employees and the patient safe.
The crash testing that we're doing today is a great first step to improving that safety and improving that security of a variety of different facilities.
So what would it take to require hospitals to install any bollards in the state?
Yeah, in the state, the legislature would have to put a law in.
With that in mind, investigator Matt Grant and our team sent our findings and reporting to every lawmaker on the Texas House and Senate Transportation Committees.
Yes, and some of their offices responded and said they're reviewing what we discovered.
And I know we'll hear from a state senator later who's looking at legislation to address this issue across Texas.
Yeah, and we reached out to every hospital referenced in our reporting. At least one has installed a bollard and other safety features after our questions. And as we mentioned earlier, St. David's North, the hospital where the Austin crash happened, they installed a dozen bollards since then.
One of the questions we've received, what makes a hospital so susceptible to these crashes?
Well, the Storefront Safety Council tells us there are added risk factors involved in these crashes, specifically at medical facilities, because you have drivers that might be on medication, they might be in distress, injured, they could be suffering from an emergency. So there's all sorts of factors, but we've seen some crashes, police say, that were intentional and planned. In recent weeks, a car drove into a hospital ER in Maryland, where at least one witness said it was intentional.
The way he get out the car, you saw that wasn't an accident. Like, he was mad. Like, he wanted to, like, hurt somebody.
And the driver in this case pulled out a knife and was arrested. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Of course, we now know the driver in that crash in Austin we've highlighted was drunk at the time, according to police and an autopsy and toxicology records. That incident in our reporting led a local councilwoman to promise to do everything in her power to make medical facilities safer.
Could somebody give me a tissue? Sorry. How do we prevent this from continuing to happen? Can we initiate an ordinance change that requires any new builds of hospitals or places where people seek medical attention to have these types of protection?
That was Austin Councilwoman Mackenzie Kelly, who filed a resolution shortly after that moment watching our story.
Yes, and if that resolution gets passed this week, all new hospitals, urgent care clinics, and standalone emergency rooms would be required to have crash-rated bollards at their entrances. Existing hospitals would be required to install them if they apply for a new permit, for example, in case they want to expand in the future. St. David's Healthcare, which includes the hospital in our story and several others in the area, says it will, quote, work to ensure compliance with any new laws if they are passed. The measure already received unanimous preliminary approval earlier this fall, so this week's final vote is really just a formality. Ahead of that, we connected Kelly with the Bernard family who inspired her to take this action.
Hi. Can I give you a hug?
Of course.
Thank you. I can't imagine the experience that you went through and the trauma that your family experienced.
When we heard that you were on top of it and you were like right at it, and it felt like we had a voice, you know, like someone who doesn't know us but cared for us, and that was so, I thank you for that, really.
Absolutely, thank you for those kind words. So how are your kids doing?
They're okay. We're dealing with a lot of things, but overall we're
moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
It's been hard, but
Yeah, exactly.
Psychologically, we're still pretty messed up, and we still have, an array of physical issues, but we're better off than we were yesterday.
That meeting there was months after the crash that injured the Bernards, and they say it's still a long road to a complete recovery ahead.
Matt, Austin wouldn't be the first place to consider policies surrounding bollards, right?
That's correct. In the last decade, the Storefront Safety Council says it's worked to help pass local ordinances requiring bollards in business parking lots in 5 cities and counties. Josh, 3 of those were sparked by deadly crashes.
And as part of our investigation, we reached out to other Texas cities where similar crashes have happened to show them what Austin is doing. And when we return, Matt shows us which cities are now considering new policies and why some could go beyond hospitals. Following our investigation prompted by a deadly crash at St. David's North Austin Medical Center,
I had several productive conversations today with my colleagues, and that is moving forward.
Austin and these other Texas cities where hospital crashes have happened are considering new safety policies. This after we shared our findings with League City, Navasota, and College Station. All now looking at possibly requiring hospitals to have security barriers called bollards at their entrances to stop cars from driving through.
He was on the floor with this trash and debris, just covered in blood. I just saw the whites of his eyes just looking up at me.
College Station City Council member Bob Yancey watched our investigation and is now looking into a bollard ordinance.
This is an issue that I just had no idea the severity of until I saw your reporting. It's just not an issue that, ever really occurred to me. And I think in a lot of ways, this is how public policy evolves. I think you have good investigative journalism that brings to light a significant safety issue.
Experts tell us our reporting is creating momentum, causing awareness of this safety concern to spread. In recent weeks, Austin's neighboring city, Cedar Park, became the latest Texas city to consider new requirements after questions from Matt Grant and our investigative team. But officials there are looking beyond hospitals.
I just heard that. So we had, loud bang.
Office manager Irat Unicef couldn't believe what he heard and then saw.
Instead of reversing out of the parking spot, the driver just pressed the gas.
In July, a truck smashed into this dentist's office in Cedar Park, just north of Austin, into the room where a patient just finished treatment. And just weeks ago, another Cedar Park crash at a restaurant.
I think it was a miracle that we didn't get hurt, no one got hurt.
A different story in 2017 when a 6-year-old was killed and a half dozen were hurt after a vehicle drove through this pediatric dental office in Alabama.
They had called all 3 of them back to the treatment room when this car zoomed through the window.
Following this, the city council there passed an ordinance requiring crash-rated or engineer-certified steel bollards at buildings where parking is within 10 feet of an entrance.
For me, it was just kind of a sobering reminder of the complexity of the problem.
Cedar Park Mayor Jim Penniman-Morin says his city is now drafting transportation design standards to improve safety.
Bollards is certainly in the mix.
While the mayor is focused on road design, speed limits, and pedestrian crossings, our reporting and a potential bollard requirement will be part of the conversation. Councilmember Heather Jeffs telling us, "I do appreciate your investigation and plan to discuss this with our council."
It's not something I thought about until you started reporting on it.
Should they be required?
I think it's a good policy.
These accidents happen 100 times a day, and they happen where we live, work, play, and shop.
Rob Ryder is a national expert on these kinds of crashes. He co-founded the Storefront Safety Council, which has tracked more than 30,000 crashes into commercial buildings nationwide since 2012, killing an average of 2,600 people a year. Lives, he says, that can be saved with crash-rated bollards.
So many of these things happen in very predictable places for very predictable reasons. People have these accidents because the driver makes a mistake, hits the wrong pedal, the driver's distracted, the driver's in a hurry.
In certain areas, hospitals always have bollards in the areas that this
hospital should have had.
Ryder is now working with Sean Breen as an expert in his lawsuit against St. David's North Austin Medical Center after his clients, the Bernards, were seriously hurt in a February crash there. He's also been contacted by Austin City Council member Zoe Kadri's office. According to an email shared with Kxan, Kadri is looking into a bollard requirement for Austin's entertainment district, a decade after 4 people were killed when a man drove into a crowd at South by Southwest.
It's always a question of when, not if.
Last year, a Chicago law firm announced a $91 million settlement against Texas-based 7-Eleven. It put together this animation showing how bollards could have prevented a serious crash that resulted in a double amputation. That suit revealing more than 6,000 crashes into 7-Elevens over a 15-year period.
Have you thought of crash-rated bollards before our investigation?
Never.
Back at the Cedar Park dental office, it's now top of mind. Days after we stopped by, the property manager installed curb stops at storefront-facing parking spots and tells us bollards are being considered.
That's something I requested, so we'll see what they're going to come up with, but that would be ideal.
That was Matt Grant reporting. Our investigation has also sparked movement beyond the local level. Now a state senator is looking into a possible statewide bollard requirement. And a Texas congressman is pushing for a safety review of regional federal facilities following our questions. That's coming up.
Reemphasize to the Bernard family, what happened to you was a tragedy, and it shouldn't happen again in the state of Texas. And I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make sure it doesn't happen again. We'll sit down with the hospitals and kind of get their take on exactly how we go about tackling and resolving this particular problem.
Something you're committed to looking
I'm
into.
committed to it, right.
State Senator Royce West telling us some type of statewide bollard requirement could be coming after our reporting. West says he first wants to meet with hospital officials and research what other state legislatures have done. We checked and found at least one example. California updated its law in 2022 to allow insurance company discounts for businesses that install bollards. Our investigation has also prompted a congressional request for a bollard review at all federal facilities in the Southwest. Once again, here's Matt Grant.
It's covered all along here.
As a result of Matt's important study about safety at area healthcare facilities, I contacted the General Services Administration about safety at federal facilities.
In June, Doggett sent this letter to the General Services Administration, or GSA, which oversees more than 8,000 federally owned and leased buildings across the country. Citing our investigation and growing security concerns, Doggett wrote, "These troubling incidents have increased calls for action to require safety bollards to prevent vehicles from crashing into buildings." The following month, Doggett, again referencing our reporting, asked for a review of federal facilities in the southwestern U.S. to determine if bollards are needed. According to federal data, the government leases or owns 1,200 buildings in our 5-state region, the most by far in Texas.
There are some leased spaces around town that I think do present those issues. I've urged the GSA, General Services Administration, to take a look at those.
We also started reviewing those sites, in recent days visiting 10 federally leased buildings in Austin. While most were designed so security barriers aren't needed, we found at least 3 without bollards or only partially protected, including buildings housing the Social Security Administration, OSHA, and the IRS. That office located inside a medical building directly across from where a drunk driver crashed into that ER in February, killing herself and seriously injuring 5. The Storefront Safety Council reviewed our photos and says this is a concern. In response to Doggett's inquiries, the GSA said it already uses more than 14,000 barriers of various types throughout the country, including around 1,000 in the Southwest. Adding bollards could be recommended at high-risk buildings, which are reassessed every 3 years. Doggett wants to see that review expedited.
I think in view of the increased number of accidents, deaths, and injuries from lack of safety bollards, that GSA needs to act now. The fact that you're involved pointing out these challenges and suggesting what the solution could be, can save lives and make a difference to so many of our neighbors.
That was Matt Grant reporting. In a statement, the GSA says it shares Doggett's safety concerns, adding, for security reasons, GSA cannot disclose the specific details of this review process. While it is difficult to eliminate all potential risks, including those posed by vehicles, GSA-owned and leased facilities incorporate countermeasures, building design features, or natural barriers to help mitigate these risks. The GSA says it can't share specific details about when federal facilities are assessed, but says the security review schedule remains as strategically planned at this time. A spokesperson thanked our team for its attention to employee and visitor safety. We'll keep you updated on that and all of the pending policies we've highlighted today, including this week's resolution vote by the Austin City Council. Catch up and keep track of our continuing coverage online now, where you can find other interactive features about the more than 300 hospital crashes we've tracked across Texas and across the country over the last decade. Just look for the Preventing Disaster link in this story on this station's website. I'm Josh Hinkle. Thank you for watching this special edition of State of Texas.